So today we're going to be talking about speciation and extinction. The three questions we're going to try to ask is, what is a species, where do new species come from, and lastly, what happens when a species cannot survive. So first off, the first definition we want to look at is, what is a species? The definition is that it's organisms that can successfully mate to have fertile offspring. The key point here is fertile, meaning that they can have more offspring, so it can have grandchildren, and that's important. The other key thing we want to note is common morphology, meaning they look the same, common DNA, and common behavior, meaning they act the same. Examples of this would be things like 4 legs, common proteins, similar mating calls, and things like such. Here we can look at some things that are not species. So these are hybrids. They're the mating of 2 things, and they do not create grand offspring. So the first one of these would be the liger. You can see up here in the upper right-hand corner. The liger is the result of a lion and a tiger. This was made famous in the Napoleon Dynamite movie. Below we have a mule, which is the result of a male donkey and a female horse. One of the reasons that these can't reproduce is because of zygotic isolation, which we'll talk about in a little bit later, and how you make species in the first place. So what are mechanisms of speciation? This explains kind of how we get species. There are 2 major types, pre-zygotic, so a zygote. What exactly is that? See if you can recall. A zygote is a baby, so before the baby is formed, we have isolation. So in terms of location, they cannot mate if they never meet. An example would be something that lives in North America and South America. They don't mate because they never meet. Another example could be a barrier that goes between them. It could be a physical barrier. Their genitals cannot connect. So you might laugh a little bit about this, but if the penis doesn't fit the vagina, you're not going to get a species. The other one would be time and behavior. So if one is awake during the day and the other one's awake during the night, they're not going to mate. And lastly, the most sophisticated one of these is behavior. So in terms of courtship, if you're not the right dance or the right song, it won't work out either. So pre meant before, post means after. Some post-zygotic barriers, meaning that their chromosome numbers are not compatible. So if one is even and one is odd, the baby will end up with an odd number, and then that cannot occur during meiosis. The other one would be egg and sperm are incompatible. So egg and sperm have to meet kind of like a key. If the sperm doesn't fit the egg, then you won't create a baby either. So here's an example of the diversity of life and all the things that come from species. Again, we talked about how evolution has changed over time, so it's the idea that you start with one thing that's well adapted, and as you create niches or different roles as the environment changes, you grow to fill these roles. So why do new species occur? The idea is to fill a niche. This is a very important vocabulary. Niche, it means a job or role in the environment. So if you have something that has a different job or role that is unmatched, just like humans in their job, you have a niche. Right now it's a student and you go to school. As a student you have a niche, just like an animal or organism has a niche within its environment. And the important thing why new species arise, they have to be able to survive, fulfill their niche, and reproduce. So what happens if a species cannot survive? That results in something called extinction. This is a loss of the genes from the gene pool. So for example, this happens a lot with diseases. If it causes you to no longer survive, you can cause extinction. And that means there are no more living organisms. So this is why we worry a lot about endangered species, because there are very few organisms that can reproduce. This can lead to issues because we need biodiversity. If we break that word down, bio means life, diversity is differences, so it can be problematic because we don't have a lot of different jobs. The way you can relate this is to people, as for example, niches are jobs, so you have to find a job that no one else has. However, if everyone only has one job, or there are only a few jobs, for example in Divergent there are only 4 jobs, this can lead to a lot of issues because you don't have a lot of options for things to go into, and if one is removed from it, then you can cause the collapse of an entire system. And this will be discussed a little bit more when we get to ecology and food webs in the next major unit. So what happens with extinctions? We can have extinction events. So extinction events are very large scale, meaning that they happen to more than one species. So this would be things where one species is removed, causing rapid changes. The other thing that can happen is rapid adaptation because of changes in the environment. One that's pretty popular is the idea of dinosaurs and meteor impacts. When meteors hit the Earth, this caused a lot of ash. It caused major changes in the light availability, causing changes to photosynthesis and a lot of the plant life. So if you think about taking out plant life, that ruins everything above that eats the plants and those things that eat the plants, and you can cause a disruption of an entire system. So what does that look like? Here's an example of how diversity can change. So if we looked at 600 million years ago, we can see that different extinction events happen from the Ordovician, Devonian, end of the Triassic, and the Cretaceous, and right now there's some conflict about whether humans are causing another massive extinction because we're changing the environment so quickly. And this again is another topic we're going to get to, is what impact do humans have on evolution. We'll delve into the idea of artificial selection and how we're changing the environment rapidly, causing changes in species. But just be aware of some major massive extinction events that occur. So really quickly, we just kind of went over speciation, but species are groups of organisms that can interbreed. Species arise from changing environments and genetic isolation, meaning that when species are separated, that's how you get new species. And lastly, poorly adapted species go extinct. In class, we'll talk a little bit about Hardy-Weinberg and how we can measure this stuff with cladograms. So if you have any questions, feel free to give me a call or shoot me a message. It's a little bit shorter lecture because we're going to focus more on the skills in class of how to measure all this. But again, if you want more references, make sure to check out your reading and check out your textbook. Again, have a great day and hope you have a great afternoon. Take care. And don't forget to write down your review questions and any questions that you might have from this lecture. Again, have a good one. Take care.